Adventures, Alan McLaren. Today's guest is Alan McLaren, co-founder of Strata Originals, where he helps CEOs and founders understand one of the most overlooked forces in leadership, how they are actually experienced by others. Alan has spent decades at the intersection of leadership, storytelling, branding, and trust, working with executives in high stakes environments where the room is often making decisions long before the meeting is over. Today, we explore why leadership isn't just about strategy or communication, but really about the signals leaders send under pressure and how those signals determine whether people align, hesitate, or walk away. Alan, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. I think we're done. You said everything I was going to say, so we're good. That was the shortest podcast in history.
Interview is over.
Over. Nice to be with you. Nice to be with you, sir.
Same here. I'll tell you. By way of a designation, I'm a CPA, I'm a CIS. I have a whole number of different designations, but a lot of my work has been an intersection of change and transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So about 3 years ago, I obtained ProSci, which is a change management designation, not because my aspiration was to be a change management practitioner,
Yes.
but because change is literally at everything. And when we talk about transformation or big programs, one of the most common things that you're told is like, leaders are super important. You're required, like as a leader, active and visible sponsorship. That's kind of the key requirement of a leader. And then it cascades different roles based on kind of the layer of the organization. But tell me, what inspired you to focus on leadership and the signals?
Well, there's a bit of a story there, but I'll try to keep it brief. My business partner, Leanne, and I had a marketing agency for almost 19 years. And COVID, we all have a COVID story. We had one too. So 90% of our business disappeared on that Sunday before everything closed. I remember that like it was yesterday. So we had to look hard at our business and say, was it us or were we not ready for something like a pandemic? And it was a little bit of both. But then AI showed up right around the corner, if you'll remember.
Yeah.
And then we kind of went, I think it's going to kill our marketing agency. So we moved into leadership branding because we thought, okay, that's something AI will have a little bit of time with, and then that caught up as well. So what we looked for in this new world, we said in our leadership branding world, we saw people doing videos who were distorted, who weren't clear, and so they were not landing even on video. So if I'm in a podcast and I'm distorted, you're going to feel from me, you know what, the words are good, but I'm not feeling it. So we started to research that and came up with leadership signal and said, oh, there's a whole invisible variable here that impacts every leader, every human actually, but we're focused on leaders. And then we kind of moved into the capital market space because he said, that's the highest stakes place that this exists. So that's kind of how we came to leadership signal. I'm happy to share more about it.
Well, tell me more about it because, I've always been in consulting or business development. What it's with EY, what it's with Deloitte, like what I'm selling to customer, what I'm selling to employees, like
Yes.
you are selling. And you've been an agency, you know what it's like. The one thing that puts off a customer is sales breath, right?
Yeah.
So it people judge you not by what you say. Of course, this is really important because what comes of it's not as important what comes of your mouth, it's what's important what goes into people's ears, right? Like the perception that's created. But tell me more about like the work that you're doing.
Well, there's another variable there that's not just the words you say and how people hear you, it's how they feel you. You used in the introduction how leaders are experienced in high stakes rooms. Well, what we have found in that world is that pressure reveals things that you didn't know that were inside you. And so when we look at, the first step in our process is understanding the pressure in the room, and anything that impacts somebody's identity, credibility, or authority through a question or a look or ignore, you're in a room and someone's got their phone and they're ignoring you, that pisses you off and that impacts you. And if you're distorted, it comes out in how you communicate. So that's the first step in the world that we're in. Once we understand pressure, then you go into autopilot. Well, what's autopilot? Autopilot is a response you've been using for 30 years, but it doesn't work because it's autopilot. And then what happens is the room goes, I'm not sure I'm following this guy, but it's all subconsciously done. It's not, I'm making a decision. I don't like Maxim anymore because he didn't say that right. I'm not feeling it. And they shut off like that. And then that's when the polite stuff starts in the room. Oh, that's great. But you're done. So that's the work we do, is we uncover the invisible variable in that room, which is a distortion based on one of those three things. And then we map it along how to actually correct that behavior. Really not even behavior. It's all nervous system level stuff. It's very, very deep. And once you clear it, you'll start landing in all those rooms. And in the case of capital markets, you know this better than anybody. Reducing the amount of rooms you have to be in to invest, to talk to investors, is direct ROI. Arguably, not even ROI, but increasing your valuation, because when you're fundraising full time, you're not keeping an eye on your business, and that tends to drop over time, and then that impacts your valuation. And so that's the work we do. It's fascinating, it's fun, and it's kind of unique.
I agree. It's this is at the core of how people show up. And so, what are the most common challenges, or what is at the center of how people show up? Because, I mean, it doesn't matter what assessment you take. They it typically asks for your internal assessment, and then it asks for an assessment of how other people view you, right? And so if you have the delta between how you view yourself versus how other people view it, you try to narrow it down to where you want. But kind of tell me a little bit more about the work that you do.
So, but what you've described is very valuable, right? But it's all at the cognitive level. So it's okay. I need to be more I need to be more empathetic. People who aren't empathetic. Do you think they can be empathetic if they decide to think about being empathetic?
It's what they
are. You know that it's, as humans, we can learn things for sure, but the reality is you are who you are. I happen to be a heart-centered leader. Can I be an ass when I need to be? When I need to make tough decisions, I can, but it's not my strength. My strength is in leading with heart. So those things are great, but what happens is people feel you before they hear you. So that's the challenge, is you can't actually think your way through this. Or you've heard people say, oh, well, you're not being empathetic. Use an elastic and smack it on your wrist so it reminds you to be. Well, when someone challenges you in a room, let's think through this for a second. I'll give you the simplest example. We'll use an example of a strategy session that a CEO is leading, right? CEO is leading it. First things out of their mouth is, there's no such thing as a bad idea. I want everybody to participate, and we're going to have a great session today to build our plan for next year. What happens in the first 10 seconds? Someone opens, hey, Joe, I have an idea. Oh, we did that last year. Boom, we're done. So what happened? So the CEO had some distortion that said, you know what, I said it, but I didn't really mean it. And I didn't mean it because that idea was my idea last year and it didn't work and it hurt me. So your question just impacted my credibility and authority, and you didn't know it.
Yeah.
And then the challenge becomes that human in the room is not opening their mouth anymore. The rest of the people in the room are not opening their mouth anymore. And then after the room's over, they're going to talk about it. And your reputation as a leader just got smashed with one comment. Here's the challenge that all leaders know. This is not easy stuff. Leadership, it's easy. Let's read 5,000 books. I've read every book on the planet. But what we have found, you have to do all the things that they talk about: empathetic leadership, listening, strategy, care about people. All those are important. But if you don't land in the room, it doesn't matter. So that's what we're talking about is learning corrective behaviors, and that's the work we do to clear distortions that you've had for likely 20 years in your life. And the impact is massive because you don't even know, you can't even name it oftentimes, what happened in that room. So that's kind of the challenges that we face. And if I can give you one thing, because you started the question really powerfully, the number one problem is if someone can't see it, they don't know it exists, it's impacting everything they do, how do they fix it? they can't if they can't name it, right? They just know
Okay.
something shifted,
Okay.
right? So then the other part of that is they often say, well, it's the team. It's them.
Mm-hmm.
I have some news for you. It's you. It's
Mm-hmm.
always you. As a leader, it's always us. And so that's the biggest challenge we face is leaders who say it's me, that's fantastic. Leaders who say it's them, that's harder to work with.
I completely agree. So a couple of thoughts come to mind. Um, in in change management, there's the there's the ADKAR model, which is awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And this change flow breaks at the weakest point. So it's
Mhm.
wherever it's the, so if you
Yeah.
have high awareness, like a leader, I have awareness. I need to change. Great. Do you have the desire? If you have the desire, you pass on to the next gate. Do you
Yeah.
have the knowledge? So I completely agree with your comment. The other thing, again, like I was, I've been part of some of the leading organizations. I've worked nothing but
Hmm.
top 20 TSX and EY and Deloitte. And so one of the assessments that I personally found it to be really effective, I don't remember what was the name of it, but it was the colors, the blue, red, yellow,
Yeah.
and green.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I found this to be powerful for, not necessarily for the assessment. The assessment is very similar to other assessments.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and we talked about the empathetic. The empathetic in the college translates to green, like show me that you care. It's
Yeah.
not that you don't care, it's just show me that you care. But what I found powerful about this is I don't know if you've seen, they had these like rubber foam cubes or kind of Lego blocks looking, and you put them on your desk and you
Yeah.
stack them in the order.
Yeah.
And if everyone in your organization has taken this training or
Yeah.
this assessment, you kind of immediately build a mental map around what this person is like.
Yeah.
If they're like fiery red, if they're like if they're blue, like it's like okay, this person leads with authority. They want the details. They don't care about emotion. Like or it's just like that's different than somebody that's showing up as green. So
Sure.
I completely agree with everything you're saying. Is that the first step for a leader to change is understanding how they show up
Yep.
and having that awareness and desire to change.
I couldn't agree more. And if we think about it in the context of a capital room, let's think of where
Hmm.
someone is either an M&A or an investor. They don't
Yep.
often have relationships with the people on the other side, right? So they're trying to build trust quickly. And you have been in those rooms on both sides of that fence, and you see how quickly trust is broken, right? Like
Hmm.
that. One statement, one comment, because they're testing you as much as the idea,
Of
right?
course. Of
Because they're
course.
going to have a relationship with you for 5 or 10 years, depending on the structure of the fund. And they want to know, I can be with this person and I trust this person. Not that they're not trustworthy as a human, meaning they do what they say and all that other stuff, but I'm trusting them with $5 or $10 million of my money.
Yeah.
And when the pressure in the room hits and they start getting defensive, you've seen that, right? Or they start over explaining, or they get really fast and they start talking like that.
Yeah.
What happens subconsciously is people are going, what's going on here? So
Yeah.
even if you're consciously aware, I did a webinar yesterday. One of the questions was brilliant. My CEOs are highly technical and they get in trouble halfway through the pitch.
Yeah.
You've seen this, right? Because
Yeah.
they're so technical, they've lost the
Hmm.
plot. He says, do I
Hmm.
tell them to go get a glass of water and breathe? No, they're going to go back right to where they were because they don't know any different.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is all of those things, practicing, pitching, knowing who you are, knowing your communication style, all important.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, in this world that I live in, your nervous system's running the show,
Yeah.
running the show. So if you don't clear the distortion, it's coming out. They're feeling it. And when you think about it, you say, well, why does it take 40, 50, 60 rooms to get an investment? It's because you don't land in half of them. You're
Hmm.
not connecting with half of them. So you could we believe you could reduce it by almost half the rejections that you have because you'll land in every room. Then it's about fit because you'll have trust. They'll
Hmm.
go, wow, he answered that question really cleanly and good. I just think it's the right fit for our business. Great. That's the
Yeah.
game. But if
Yeah.
you don't land, you're asking for double trouble. So that's where where we really enjoy the work, because when someone clears a distortion, it's a visceral reaction for them. They actually go, it's something very deep psychologically, and when we see that happen, it's just magic. And the important thing, Maxim, to understand is when you have a distortion like we're talking about, it carries from room to room, not just investor room, executive room, and we get texts from the wives going, "What did you do to Sid?" Because it transfers to how they react in their personal lives. So it's fun stuff. Yeah.
100%, 100%. We see this all the time. You can tell when somebody has a pep in their step. It's kind of interesting. Like, I think it was last month, I wrote an article around what happens when founders get defensive.
Bingo.
And it ultimately leads to exactly the outcome that you're describing. But I want to unpack the idea around how do you clear the distortion? How do you become viscerally aware of your distortion so that you can overcome it? Like, walk me through it.
Here's the depressing part. I can't give you a tool to go, hey, go do this. That's unfortunate.
No silver bullet?
There's no silver bullet here. So and it sounds self-serving because that's the work we do. But I want to be very clear that that's not what I'm doing. Awareness is step one. But solution doesn't happen on your own. So I'll just park that and I'll give you what we do. So the reality is, if we think about the first step in the process is what we do is a 90-minute interview to uncover. We have very structured questions that uncover the distortions in the high pressure rooms that you're in. So Maxim, if I was working with you, I'd say, okay, tell me about the high pressure rooms you're in. And you'll say, Alan, the capital rooms are really important, and the M&A rooms seem to be the one that I'm in the most. On both sides of the fence, either connecting or doing that. Great. So those are the two high pressure rooms that I want to focus on. Great. And then we'll talk through them, and we're going to uncover that you get really defensive in M&A rooms because you don't feel you belong. I'm not using you as an example. You don't feel you really belong in those things. These are people that have raised hundreds of millions. Maybe you've raised 5 million. I don't think I belong. That stuff comes out. So we uncover that distortion. Maybe you see questions that challenge the numbers as disrespect because you maybe have done 4 exits and you've done well. So a question comes out that way. So we uncover that first. We map it out. We map out what we call your distortions or your shadows. And then we go, great. Now we have a plan. We know who you are. And then we walk them through and say, okay, the actual, for lack of a better term, coaching sessions, we call corrective sessions. That's where we get into the technical stuff, where we identify the room. Once we have the room, we identify, now that we know the distortions, we actually start going through it. And maybe I'll tell you a story that might help you illustrate what happened to me. And it's one that I have to be vulnerable about, but I will be vulnerable for your audience. And I was in a room with 60 CEOs about 15 years ago before we started this work. And what I knew about myself is I don't like when people yell at me. You can tell me I'm an idiot. You can tell me I screwed up. Just do it at a normal volume. You yell, or at least in the past, I match the energy. So we're in this room and I'm presenting and it's going great. Everybody's loving it. I'm getting an audience. One guy starts yelling at me, screaming at you this and you that and blah, blah, blah. Well, I matched his energy. I'm surprised we didn't come to blows. I kicked him out of the room. Can you imagine the tension in the room with 60 CEOs after that exchange? So that's what happened. The problem was I saw that as good behavior for me. I took command of the room. I was in command mode. I did what I was supposed to do. I took control. That was my perspective then. Working with my business partner, Leanne, she says, so this is the work. So Alan, let's go back to that room. And by the way, I'm telling you this story. I'm feeling it in my chest. Really feeling I'm back there now talking to you. You notice I got more aggressive. That's what nervous system does. So the work is, then we come back and Leanne starts asking me questions and starts reframing what actually happened in that room. So let's reframe the conversation. Was he yelling at you or was he angry with who you represented? Yeah, he wasn't really yelling at me. He doesn't know you. How could he be mad at you? So he was mad at something else and he had an inability to communicate. So his frustration came out in yelling and maybe something bad happened to him. So let's re-anchor that in a different way. And so what I'm describing is very short. This would go over hours of conversation.
Of course.
Ultimately now, I look at that and go, I've cleared that distortion. So if anybody yells at me now, my reaction is automatic. Maxim, I can understand your frustration. Can you tell me more about why you feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not feeling attacked anymore. I saw his attack as disrespect, which is a bit of a theme for me that I see in different places. You ask me a question I don't like, I see it as disrespect subconsciously, not consciously. And that's what comes out in a look or a come on or a come on, that's a stupid question. And we've all done that. So the work we do is to clear the distortion. So now people can yell at me and I will react appropriately for the room and control the room. So trust is continuing to build and they'll go, that guy got yelled at. Look how he handled that. So that's the work we do. And it's very technical and that's all the IP that we built. But essentially it's a conversation to clear a distortion. And one example really quickly, one of our clients had a distortion that was really, really bad, but it meant he kept going. He was a visionary leader. He kept going from altitude, meaning he had to stay at the CO level. He just kept going, you guys don't get it, I'm going to do the work, which was killing him. After the work, you know what he did? He went and bought a model airplane and left it in the back of his thing. And that reminds him, that's the anchor to stay at altitude. Someone comes in with a problem, I got to stay at altitude. Yeah. And now he just looks at his plane and boom, he doesn't have to react. So that's the fun work because it stays forever. And then the next time he goes into a room with his team or with an investor or with a customer, he's not having that distortion anymore.
I mean, the key to change is habitualizing the knowledge.
Correct.
So I couldn't agree more. I wanted to unpack something because as you were talking, I just wrote it down. Kind of circa 2015, emotional intelligence became in vogue. Like everyone was talking about EQ and emotion intelligence, how EQ is more important than IQ. And then a whole slew of authors came out with some form of like, as a leader, it's important to be vulnerable. Sure. And you talked about vulnerability. But in many ways, vulnerability is showing you weakness, or it's oversharing, or it's like, so help me square up like the leadership signals.
Sure.
How do you show command and control, or how do you like, because the key is to give confidence, what is to employees that you're in control, not necessarily to be command and control, but to give them the confidence that you're in control, the company is in control, the situation is in control, and then being vulnerable.
So the way that I look at vulnerability is, don't you? So I don't know you or your audience really, really well, and I just told you something deeply about myself. People are either going to say he's an idiot or, oh my God, is this the kind of guy he is? And the answer is, I'm going to be congruent with what I am because I told you I'm a heart leader. Some PE firms that hire CEOs want an ass. They want a spreadsheet assassin. They want someone who's going to go in and tear it up, and in 3 years they want to flip it. Okay, that's not me. So what I look at with leadership, EQ is just an ability to communicate and humanly with other humans. Simple, right? And it's the ability, as I don't know, it was Maya Angelou that said, people want to know you care. Right before, right? So that gold, whatever, I forgot what the whole thing. But the point is, we're dealing with humans. The business is a game. It's just a game. It's metrics and numbers and marketing and tactics and strategy. Businesses aren't trusted, but people are. Or not. We're not. So EQ is just a style, but every leader should have EQ if they want to connect with people on their teams. So let's park that. Vulnerability is one way to trust. Because if you are vulnerable with your team, your subordinates, they go, he's human. Because guess what? Leaders don't know everything. In fact, they're supposed to hire people smarter than them, right?
Absolutely.
So if you hire people smarter than you and you're vulnerable, then what happens? You're building a culture of people who are going to be vulnerable. And they go, it's safe here. I feel safe. Because one of the things that we do, we talk about in the room, do you feel safe in that room? The example I used with that CEO who said, it's a bad idea, I don't want to talk about that. Nobody felt safe in the room after that. And the next time they have an interaction, they're not feeling safe. What happens when you're not feeling safe? It's one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to be safe. In a relationship, in a friendship, in any environment, humans need that. We need that safety. So to me, vulnerability is about being human. And when you don't have that, then people don't trust you because you're hiding something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think vulnerability can good. Command and control is a false game. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a false game. People look at you and trust you and go, this person is smart enough and they've empowered us to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
What do you build? A good leader builds leaders. That's what they do. They build good leaders and they build a great culture. To me, a good vulnerable leader still has a side to them that goes, now I'm going to use my authority.
Mm-hmm.
You have authority
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time. You need it. You use it when you need it. And when you're in the decision room and everybody's waffling, okay, guys, this is where we're going. The ship is sinking. I have no time for this. Go grab the lifeboats. You go do this. You go do that. That happens sometimes. That's okay. If that's all you do, then you think your leaders are being developed? No. You want them to go, I got the lifeboats. You handle the clearing of the water. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
the women and children are off first, whatever. So if your team is doing that, isn't that better? That's the magic between. So vulnerability just allows humans to connect. And in our work, really, we don't deal with it at that level because that's great leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You can have all of that and still not land. That's the
Yeah.
problem that I'm trying to surface here. You should have all those things. Excuse me, let me just grab some water.
Yeah, no worries.
You should have all those things, but you're still going to have these distortions that impact what you do. So the example of me yelling in that room, I would carry that into my room with my team here. If someone ever raised their voice at me because I made a mistake or something, I would match their energy and go into command mode. And a lot of CEOs do that, by the way. I still have a distortion where if someone doesn't do the work, I will say something like, fuck it, I'll do it. Excuse my language. I'm just going to do it. That's not a good way to be a leader. But we
Mm-hmm.
all have distortions that come up all of our lives.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea is to clear them and do them. And we're all a work in progress, including me.
For sure. I mean, I absolutely love what you're saying. Like for um, a number of years, he used to have a mentor, and shout out, his name is Jared Spratt. And he said one thing that absolutely changed my way of thinking as a leader. At that time, I was leading a team of 20 people. He's like, Maxim, how do you know if you're winning? I'm like, well, I don't know. If we deliver this, if we do this. He's like, no. Like, what do you mean, no, Jared? He's like, you know that you're winning if you walk through your area and the team is high fiving each other. Because then you know that the work is being done, even if you're not there. There's chemistry, there's gelling. And so the outcomes are a byproduct of the team. So he's like,
100%.
he's like, you should never talk about what you have done. You should talk about what the team has accomplished. What's the chemistry? What's the energy? Like, where they going? This was probably the first time that I heard something like that. I was like, okay, this has literally changed my leadership style.
Yeah, it's magic. And then when I coach leaders, I always talk to them about really two things. When you have success, it's the team. And when you have failure, it's you.
100%.
That's
100%.
it. So now, again, back to your team. And the other thing that's really good about what he described was there's no fear of you. You're one of the team. You're the leader of the team.
Mhm.
But they don't get fearful when Maxim's here. Maxim's here.
Yep.
I have to
Yep.
pretend I'm working. I
Be
don't want you to
different. Yeah.
pretend I'm working. I want with my team, we're all remote. And I say to them, if you have to go to the dentist, go to the dentist. Get your work done. You don't have to.
Okay.
And they still tell me, I got a bug. I said, just go.
Yeah.
I'm not in your house every day.
Yeah.
Do the work. You know what you have to do. We have a morning huddle. Get your priorities done. If it takes you 6 hours or 8 hours or 15 hours, that's up to you. Live your life. Deliver what we've asked. You know what that does for a team? Trust. So when they call you and say, you want to read this post I did? I tell them, I don't want to read the post. You're the expert. Go do it. And so that's what that guy was telling you about.
Absolutely.
And then deliverables happen and people are happy. You built a culture. That's all the magic. And but you can break that in 2 seconds with a stupid comment. And that comes from that I've done and every leader I've ever talked to has done. And the idea is I don't want to do that again if I make that mistake, because you will, because that's what carries from room to room, right?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So kind of like thinking about how leaders show up in the rooms. You often speak about leadership signals. What are what invisible signals are most leaders unintentionally broadcasting when they're in those proverbial rooms?
Well, the manifestation is in the opening. You use the word trust, right? So that's the game we're playing. So, but every leader is different, right? So you and I would be different in terms of the distortions we have. They're just based on, could be triggers, could be trauma, could be something. Maybe nobody talked to you when you were a kid. Maybe you were adopted. Like, we don't get into trauma, but we trace it back to a place where you might have recognized that. So the first thing is, when a leader, what happens in those rooms is, all the things you mentioned, let's check the boxes and say important: EQ, vulnerability, listening. All those things are important, and they're table stakes to me. So those are table stakes. You don't have those, then what we do is not going to help you as much, because great, you'll land in the room, but you're a crappy leader. Okay. So you have to have a little bit of both. It's kind of like you have to have a cake and you have to have all the ingredients that are proper in there to make it all come together. And if you forget something like baking powder, then it may not rise. So what we're talking about here is those leaders, at the end of the day, when they're incongruent and they don't realize that everything coming out of their mouth either breaks trust or breaks safety. Because guess what? As a leader, here's the truth that you know, but you never think about. Everybody's watching every single move, every single gesture, every single touch, every single look. That is the responsibility of a leader. You know that. And so when you walk by and talk to one of your employees and tell them something like, really appreciate that job you did, and someone else hears that and it's sincere, what does that do? That's outside the room, right? Inside the room, the same behavior will happen because they trust you. If they trust you and they feel safe, then anything can happen that you described in your team. If they didn't trust you, you can't have high fives and high spirit, because it'll be, oh, what's he going to say to me now? Right? He's such an ass when it comes to these projects. He's all over me all the time. He's micromanaging everything I do. So every leader is different, for sure. But when they're in those rooms, and specifically in capital rooms, when they're in with people they don't know, that's what I say. Trust is broken in one comment, in one defensive reaction, in one challenge, because that's an adversarial relationship by nature, right? You're giving me money, I'm going to beat you up because I want to find out who you are. I want to find out the real behind the scenes human that we're going to work with when stuff hits the fan, because it will. It always does. What happens when that happens? Am I dealing with someone I can trust? That's the game we're playing in those capital rooms where investors are actively challenging you. And if you're not honed, that's why you have to take 40, 50, 60 meetings, because you don't land in every room. So that's what really happens. That's what happens.
I mean, for me, it's just to be able to relate this to everyone in the audience. To me, probably the best example that comes to mind right away when trust is broken is Sam Altman and OpenAI, right? Like when he got
100%.
outed by the board,
100%.
and what was the comment that they used? I don't remember how it was framed, but it was essentially, he cannot be trusted.
He cannot be trusted.
He cannot be trusted. That was the reason. Like I can't remember what was said. He was lying or something. He cannot be trusted.
Isn't that that's the game we're in, though? But isn't it the life game we're in? Like you and I have just met, right? We start talking about doing some stuff together. If we didn't connect on the first meeting, we wouldn't have this, and we won't have what's coming later. So trust is the foundation of everything humans want to do, because we get screwed a lot. So when you find people that have integrity and that are aligned and people you want to deal with, you say, those are the people I want in my life, because I'm too old to worry about working with idiots. I don't want to work with idiots. I only work with people I can trust, because if I'm putting them in front of my customers, I'm putting myself in front of them. So they have to they got to deliver. They got to have the same empathy. They got to care as deeply as I do. That happens with your employees, with investors, with your spouse, with your kids. It's all the same game. Do I trust you, and do I feel safe? If you do that, they listen to you then. Without that, they're doing this. They might be polite. You've been in those rooms, right?
Yeah.
I don't like this guy. I don't like Sam Altman. He's full of crap.
Yeah. CEOs
get fired in board meetings because of that behavior.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So imagine you're trying to raise 5, 10, 20 million, 100 million. That's why you need to go in 50, 60 rooms. You don't have to, but that's what ultimately happens today. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been blessed in my career to be in a lot of board meetings, in camera sessions just with the audit committee or the board. And what I can tell you is that the board meetings rarely surface anything that the board members don't already know.
Yeah.
We've had board members that would openly walk the hallways and just go and pick a leader and just, hey, let's go grab a coffee.
Yeah.
But it's really the life of a CEO is directly correlated to how much trust they're able to instill
Correct.
in the minds of the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. And it's the board at the end of the day, that's who you report to, right? That's your boss.
That's what hires you and fires you. Absolutely.
That's your boss. Hire and fire there. And I have a story of a multi-billion-dollar CEO was telling me a story that when I shared with him what we do in Leadership Signal, he went, "Oh my God, I experienced that exact thing." And I said, "Tell me about that." He said, and now I want to reveal who he was, but he was a big-time CEO, very well known in Canada.
Yeah.
And he said, I was defending the numbers because consumer spending was down, inflation was up, everybody was getting the same hit, and it was hitting our business in a big way. And I was getting defensive and getting angry with them. I almost got fired at the end of that board meeting. This is a guy who grew this business, took them out of the crap, but almost lost it all in that quick of a second because they said, he changed. What happened? He was never this guy before. But that was a distortion. He was going, wait, you're attacking my authority and my credibility to do this work? That's what was happening subconsciously. Mm-hmm. So he says, I now have to be more mindful. He's got to work with us to be able to get that distortion cleared because it's going to happen again because the economy is going in a tail again. So you have to make sure you don't defend yourself in that way.
But I just want to double click on this. So big publicly traded company. I'm not going to say who they are. I was working with them. And so I was walking by the CEO. The CEO and I literally sat about 15 feet apart. And so I was like, hi, insert name. How did it go today? Because it was the board meeting. He's like, I survived another quarter. And I'm like, okay, that's not a good testament to what happened in the boardroom. And sure enough, that company got sold not even a year later. So there's the distortion. Obviously, there was the fractures in the trust were already occurring.
Yes.
But I was on the inside. He was talking to the external stakeholder. So you can work on fixing the distortion, but how do you fix the things that happen within the company in order for you to instill confidence to the broader organization that you have things under control?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, right, that's why I said you have to check the boxes of leadership. You have to be competent, right? At the end of the day, you can be the nicest human being and the kindest leader and all kinds of EQ. But if you're not executing at the end of the day, nothing matters, right? So let's be honest, right? And in fact, execution, especially in the VC world, is much more important than are people happy, right? Because that's the nature of a VC or a PE firm, or even a family office is, I want to drive my investment up. I'm going to double it, triple, whatever the number is. That's why they exist. So, but if it's a perfect world, here's the magic that we've seen. You are a VC, you have a portfolio company. Let's say that portfolio company's done well. They're going to raise a fund again. They're not going to raise it from you because you've already exposed something to them. Go get some money to de-risk us a little bit. So they want those people to do well. So to do well, they have to land in those other capital rooms and they have to have happy business stories. So it's incumbent upon the first one in, the seed or the Series A, to make sure their portco is well positioned to get the next raise because that helps the whole ecosystem and everybody rises and everybody makes money. So you still have to have competence. If you're not a competent CEO, all this stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Competence first, great leadership, part of that competence. Landing in the room. Well, if you're not landing with your team execution doesn't happen. That's where you have decision drag and meetings and all that crap that you've seen. Wow, what happened? Why? I thought we agreed on alignment and clarity. It was all going to be this. Why did it take 6 months to get to that place?
Yeah.
Because there was a distortion there that didn't land. So you have that side of it. And of course, it's the same thing with external stakeholders. They're being communicated what you're doing. If what you're doing is not working, it doesn't matter on the other side.
It's I completely agree with you. I've had an executive coach, and I've been on the other side for many interviews when executive coaches have been interviewing me for leaders. And what I can tell you is, again, that's based on their framework. Technical competency is absolutely a must. It's foundational. You have to have it because everything else is dependent on.
Correct.
But percentage-wise, it's only 35%.
Isn't that interesting?
65% is all the other stuff that you focus on.
Yeah. You know,
so 1/3 versus 2/3.
You know, it's interesting, Maxim. You know, we've all heard the old adage that, you know, when you're in a presentation, it's body language and words, and so much of your presentation, the majority is all the unsaid stuff.
Okay.
Right? Because our brains are designed beautifully, right? Our amygdala brain, our dinosaur brain is designed to kind of scan the room for safety, right? That's what it is. And they're making decisions about you before you open your mouth.
Okay.
Before you open your mouth, they're going, not sure before. Yeah. So Sam Altman walks into a room after that board meeting. He's already plastered with, not sure about this dude. Yeah, he can build a nice product, but is he the leader we need to take us to the next level?
Okay.
All subconsciously. So that's the challenge, is that, are you doing that as a leader today? Or as you move into a new world where you're now distributed with now 10,000 employees, that's different leadership, isn't it? Than running 20 people or 30 people.
Okay.
That's a lot of a different world. So you have to have trust built with the team all the way down. So then executive team becomes more important because they're the ones running each of the silos that are there. So it's complicated stuff, but competence is really interesting that it's only 35%, but it is a table stake. If you're incompetent, you shouldn't be a CEO. You need to have competence. Then all those other things make you an amazing leader, and performance makes you everything else. And then everybody wins when you have performance and happy teams. But we all know the truth. That's really hard to do. It's really hard to do.
Completely agree with you. And when it comes to this, what I find is you have to, you cannot, like, I mean, you said it, you have to surround yourself with smarter people than you. 100% agree with this. Scott Galloway famously says, like, greatness is in the agency of others. It's not kind of like, you cannot accomplish if things are dependent on you to lead to build the organization, build a product, build the outcomes. You're never going to succeed. Like, you have to have that trust with your team for them to execute, because that's where the greatness comes from. So I completely agree with you there. And you cannot, I mean, Harvard has the famous article around monkey on your back. You cannot take somebody else's problem and put it in your back.
That's right.
I don't know how to do it. I'm just going to go fix it. Sure, you can fix it the first time, but that's like, you immediately become the bottleneck. You immediately become the limiting factor. But I want to go back to trust in human nature.
Sure.
and ask you, because you talk about that every room is asking 4 questions of a leader. So can you walk us through what those questions are and why are they universal?
Well, back to the first question is he safe? Do I feel safe? Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the first question. I don't have all of them in front of me, but the first one is, do I feel safe? And then that's the one that I talked about, that people make a decision subconsciously, right?
Yeah.
Because of if we're dealing with a capital room where you're getting investment and they don't know you, they're making that decision. And I think it's a higher level question, is, do I trust this human? Yes. That's the subconscious decision in that room. When you're talking about your executive team, it's a little bit different. So safety is always on display, because this human can fire me. So do I feel safe in that room to speak my mind, even to challenge him or her and still feel safe. So that's kind of the universal piece. And if I keep it in capital room space, it's always about trust. Then they make psychological decisions that should I stay, leave, or just shut down. All done without a conscious, will I stay or will I go? No, they're shutting down. And that's when you see polite nods. Oh, yeah, that's really good. This guy, no, I'm sorry. I've made a decision already what I'm going to do. At the end of the day, those, and I don't remember the two other questions, but off the top of my head, but at the end of the day, those are the two most important ones,
Yeah.
because once you have those two, then you have trust. And if you have trust, you have open communication, and people feel the ability to say, isn't it amazing when I have nobody on my team that is fearful to tell me anything?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that good? Because you're going to get the truth, unvarnished truth. They may not know everything, so you have to now help them understand the fuller picture if you don't agree with them. But I'm learning from them every day because they're in the trenches. They're doing the work. And the one thing that's so important that you mentioned, but I want to reiterate it, it's so important. You know, if you're in any business, if you're the key, then you're the bottleneck. And you're not only the bottleneck. When you want to sell the business, you're the problem, because your valuation is going to go down if you're the one that they need to hire, you know, outside of an earnout for 2 years. So when you build a business that can run without you, that's when the real money starts to happen. Doesn't matter how big you are. So it's really important to build your team, because that business needs to run without you. And if there is an M&A, you want to be the CEO maybe of the combined entity. So you're always competing for space. So everything we're talking about, when you do it right, the good things happen out of that, because you're the better leader and you have built the team properly. So that's how, to me, all those things kind of come together.
I could not agree more with you. When we're doing sell side work, the two top reasons that drive valuations: quality of earnings, key man risk, or key woman risk. Like you cannot have this, because the organization has to be self-sustaining.
Correct.
Without the founder or the leader or whoever is at the helm, or maybe it's a technical person.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, kind of speaking of like the leader, what changes or what needs to change for a leader of a 10-person organization versus a leader of a 100-person organization versus a leader of 1,000-person organization?
So simple. When you're in a 10 or 20-person organization, it's an entrepreneurial venture. You are in everything. You're working in your business and on your business. So let's be honest. You can't be a true CEO and start delegating everything, because you're too small. You need to know every little part of that business. So I think that's clear on the smaller side. The next transition, of course, is now, okay, now you're hiring people. So now you have maybe a VP of sales, VP ops, and a CTO or something like that. So now you got to learn to delegate, right? So now you're maybe 50 or 100 people, but now your executive team are doing more, but you're still very visible, because the people need to trust the leader, because otherwise they'll go, where is he or she? I don't see them a lot. They don't come and talk to us. You can do that at a medium level. When it gets bigger, you're the band leader. You build a great band, and you are visionary, your public visibility. You deal with the board, you deal with public markets if it's public, and you deal with your executive team. And then, and what a lot of CEOs miss, unfortunately, is they have an opportunity to deal with thousands of people. They just can't deal with them one at a time. So they need to find a way to communicate the vision of the organization, which supports the executive team, the board, and all of those people. So it just changes. You get pulled away from the core of the business, and you work on the culture, the values, the vision. That's the true world of a CEO, and everything is delegated. Your desk should not have a monkey on it, to your point. There should not be one monkey on there. You're thinking strategically, working with the board, working your executive team. That's the difference for me.
I couldn't agree more. And this is supported from change management perspective as well. In change management, the most important person for an employee is not the leader, is the immediate supervisor.
Correct.
Because they're the ones that are shaping the world. Of course, there's the macro environment within a company, but there's the micro environment within a team, and kind of like, what does the leadership say? So if you're kind of thinking about the cascading of message, Sure, you can have a leader of 1,000-person organization, kind of set the vision, the strategy, and things like that, like try to inspire the organization. But it's kind of like, how does it's all based on trust.
All based
How
on
does this message translates down to through the ranks, down to the person that's receiving the message?
I was I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just give you a quick story. When I was in Quebec, I'm originally from Montreal, and I went to a turnaround, a really bad situation. We were 2 out of 10 on the survey, like 2 out of 10. That was brutal. And
Wow.
what I did was, because it was broken, I went and met every team in 9 offices, and I talked to them. And the reality was, afterwards, the trust part was, I listened to them, and then when I came back, I said, here are the ideas I'm going to implement, and here's why I'm not implementing these other ideas, because of this or timing or funding or whatever it happens to be. Do you know what happened over time? They kind of went, well, at least somebody listened, and it didn't go into some black hole. A year later, it's 8 out of 10, only because of trust. The business still was in trouble because I came in, it was half of it was losses. It was, EBITDA was terrible. But then it started to turn because people were believing that we had a chance. And it's all based on communication, honesty. Listen, we're not going to do that. This is why. Oh, at least
I get it.
I now know why.
Yeah.
You can do that at any size organization. And at the end of the day, that's back to that safety and trust conversation. It's always that raising capital, M&A. If you don't have trust, nothing else matters. Nothing else happens. And when you distort in those rooms or have masks or become command mode when you get upset, then you're breaking trust. And you're breaking it on all sides of your life. That's where the work we do comes in. When you do that, then you land in better rooms. So all things become better. Decisions go better. Fundraising goes easier. All those things start to happen because of that work.
100%. I know, Alan, we're almost at time. I like to close the conversation. And by the way, I have tremendously enjoyed this conversation. But I like to close conversations with a choice of a question, and you can choose which one to answer.
Pressure in the room, baby. It's pressure in the room.
I'm giving you optionality. And I mean, there's choice theory, which says that like if you have too many options, then it actually shuts down the nervous system. But in this case, I'm giving you only two choices.
Okay.
What's the best advice you have ever received, or what's the kindest thing someone has ever done for you?
They go together.
Very much so. Feedback? Yeah.
Best advice, and you know what? It wasn't advice. It was how my mom lived with us. Be kind. There's never a time in your life where you don't have to be kind. I have fired, unfortunately, thousands of people in my life. And unless they stole from the business, I could be kind. If they stole from the business, then bad Alan came out. But being kind at every turn, to me, people appreciate that. Opening a door, being nice, helping out. To me, that's the best way I live my life. And I don't know another way to do it, and that would be my advice to anybody, because it comes back 100%. Let me tell you,
it's good karma.
Good karma. It's real.
Yeah. Alan, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for coming on the Scaling with Clarity podcast.
I really enjoyed it, Maxim. Really fun conversation.
I truly enjoyed it too. Thank you.